Marla Toncray. Welcome guys, I'm Colby Alexander.
And I'm Elliot Fryman.
And today we're heading across the river to the Kentucky Gateway Museum to check out the new hemp and tobacco exhibit with
Marla Toncray.
Marla Toncray. We'll see you guys there.
Welcome to the Kentucky Gateway Museum Center's War Mall Gallery. This is a new exhibit that we have put together. It is the Maysville Burley Tobacco Market exhibit. This is a permanent exhibit here at the Museum Center, and the purpose of this is to highlight our county, our city, and our region's history in the Burley tobacco market during its heyday. The artifacts here have been curated from our museum collection, and we have tried to bring some interesting facts to people's attentions just to let them know exactly how big this market was and what the economic impact was to our region. The Burley tobacco market wasn't just focused in Maysville. It did go across the river to Ripley, Ohio, and it was very strong for over 100 years here. And the tobacco industry in its earliest days was not an auction system as people, I think, in most modern day times would think of the auction system. The auction system came about around 1915s, 1920s, somewhere in that time frame, and that totally changed the way the farmer got paid for his crop and how the companies were paying the farmers for the crops. So we have tried to highlight this information from roughly 1900 forward into the 1990s when effectively the tobacco market disappeared from our region. One of the interesting things here, and I'm not sure if people know this, you may listen to the local Maysville radio station called WFTM. The call letters for WFTM actually stand for the world's finest tobacco market. And so that's why we have that sign up here. Because Maysville was the second largest Burley tobacco market in the United States. We were second to Lexington, Kentucky. And so we were a very prominent player in this industry. We've got on display some tobacco sticks here. A lot of young people are not familiar with tobacco and how it's raised, how it's planted, how it's stripped, how it's dried. These are tobacco sticks, and then there's a tobacco spear here. My understanding is that you would have the spear on the end of your stick and you would spear the shaft of the tobacco hand, that's what it was called, and then you would put it along your tobacco stick and then it would hang up in the barn. And this is an illustration of that tobacco stick with the tobacco on it getting ready to go up in the barn to dry. So we have just a variety of items here. This is a tobacco baler. This was invented by someone here in Mason County, and they were gracious enough to donate it to us. So that is something unique for people to see. And then in this case, we have highlighted some of the tools that the farmer and the farmhands would use to set the tobacco, to promote growth, to cut it, again to spear it. And we've also highlighted for our visitors the role of the auctioneer and the auctioneer's chant, because again the auctioneer was a key player to the tobacco market in its heyday. And we've also pulled up this interesting artifact, which is a tobacco twist. And this came from one plot of a tobacco crop in the east end of Maysville. And it was grown between the Pelham and Tyler Streets in east end of Maysville, which today is a residential area, and you wouldn't think of someone growing a tobacco crop there, but this gentleman did that, and it has come to us to illustrate to people just what a tobacco twist actually looks like. In this case, we have tried to highlight a different side of the tobacco industry. Most people, I think, tend to think automatically of cigarette smoking for the tobacco industry. Maysville had a very strong cigar manufacturing industry here at one point, around the 1900. And so we have a sign here for the Petrie's Exacto 5-cent cigar. We have several snuff holders here and a description of what snuff is and when snuff became popular in Europe and when it moved over to the Americas. And then we have the pipe tobacco with the can of Prince Albert tobacco and a pipe there. And we also have a very pretty ladies' spittoon. So you might think that only the men were spitting their tobacco into a brass spittoon, but the ladies were chewing tobacco also, and they just had a little prettier receptacle to spit into than the men. We've also highlighted for our visitors the Burley Tobacco Cooperative. This was an organization that worked with the farmers and the tobacco companies, to make sure that, everybody's on point. The farmers are getting the best money. The tobacco companies are getting the best product that they possibly could. And so this highlights a bit of that history and how that co-op came to be and the role that they played in the tobacco industry here in the state of Kentucky. We'll move around the corner. Also included in the exhibit is the history of the tobacco wars that took place at the early 1905 to 1910. It was a struggle between the tobacco farmers that wanted to stay independent and those that wanted to go into a co-op trying to get the most money for their crop that they could, and it proved to be a very volatile time in Kentucky. It started primarily in the western end of Kentucky, but it did spread up to Mason County. And in this display, we have reproduced a 1950s Louisville Courier Journal newspaper article that focuses on the Longnecker family of Mason County. And it recounts that history of when Ben Longnecker and his family were attacked by other tobacco farmers who were mad at Longnecker for not joining the co-op, and how they terrorized the population and what took place here at this Mason County farm. So this is a very important piece of history. This tobacco wars also helped bring about the demise of the American Tobacco Company that was broken up into smaller tobacco companies like R.J. Reynolds and others after this, because they had such a hold on the prices being controlled at what the farmers were going to get. So this is an interesting bit of history as well. We look at the advertising portion of cigarettes. Celebrities like baseball player Willie Mays at one point. It was very common to have celebrities advertising cigarettes. And cigarettes at one point were advertised on television, as were other tobacco products. We do have information about when the last cigarette advertisement was aired on national television. And that was it was on December 31st of 1970 at 11:59 p.m. It was on the Johnny Carson show, and it was for Virginia Slim cigarettes. And that was the last cigarette commercial to be aired on national television because of the Public Health Cigarette Smoking Act that was passed to limit that so that young people were not influenced to begin smoking. And so that changed the way marketing was done for cigarettes. This section highlights, we tried to capture as many of our warehouses as we possibly could, because at one point Maysville had upwards of 20 some odd tobacco warehouses here, whether they were a full-blown tobacco plant that had a redrying area, a stemming area, or if it was simply a tobacco warehouse that they did nothing more than store the tobacco. So we hope you'll come and enjoy the tobacco and learn a little bit more about our history. We've also have highlighted the Mason County history for the hemp. In 2014, the federal government made it legal to grow hemp again. This is a different plant than a marijuana plant. The main difference is the THC level that is contained between a hemp plant and a marijuana plant. Hemp is a very fibrous plant, and in the 1850s in America, your ship rope was being made from hemp, your clothing was being made from hemp. There was all kinds of things that hemp was being used for. And Maysville was the United States capital of hemp production in 1850. And one of our largest hemp dealers here was a gentleman named Michael Ryan. And his hemp warehouse actually stands, or it stood, at the corner of 3rd and Sutton Street where the Mason County Justice Center is today. So this side and these cases highlight our hemp industry and our heritage. This is a hemp knife that was used out on the Piles farm around 1845, I believe the tag says, so that's a very old hemp knife. We've highlighted some products that can be made from hemp. This is what Mr. Ryan's warehouse looked like, and as you can see, we have spools of hemp fiber and other hemp type products. And you see you can go from this type of fiber on a spool to a denim hat. And hemp is very durable. It lasts a lot longer than cotton and other fabrics. And then around on this side, over here we have again highlighted our history of Mason County with the hemp market. We're also trying to bring to the attention of our visitors that hemp is making a comeback in Kentucky. There are several farmers throughout the state growing substantial acres of hemp. We do have several farmers in Mason County doing this, as well as the Buffalo Trace region. And this advertising literature talks about the hemp walk. Or the Hemp Trail. And these are sites significant to the comeback of hemp in Kentucky as an industrial-based type product. And we also have highlighted here the products from Sella, and they are a new manufacturing company in Maysville. They take the raw hemp from the field and they convert it into products that you can use that are CBD products, whether it's drops, or they even have like a honey that you can put in your tea that has CBD in it for medicinal purposes. So that's what we have. Both of these exhibits are a permanent part of the Warmall Gallery now on the 2nd floor. In addition to bringing our tobacco and hemp history back to life for our visitors and reminding them of what an important industry it is, we decided to also take the time to do a bit of a facelift here on the 2nd floor of our Warmall Gallery. So we got a new coat of paint, which has freshened up the environment here. And we have made plans to have several of our cases change out about every 6 months so that the exhibits here remain fresh. Currently we have a hats, purses, and parasol exhibit. We have our Maysville silver exhibit, which silver was also a big industry for us. And then we also have the history of our railroads, because at one point we had 3 railroad depots here. We were a big terminus for the railroads. So come and visit us and learn a little bit more about your history.